In this video, we're going to be analyzing a variable that has a lot of dispersion, and it resides in the data set GSS 2012. Now, I've already opened this set, but if you haven't, go to the folder where you've stored the data sets and go to full version if you're running the full version of SPSS and open GSS 2012. If you're running the student edition of the software, go and open GSS 2012 Student A. The first step, anytime you open a data set for the first time, is click Edit, Options, and you see the General tab opens. This particular step seems mundane, but and it was covered in Chapter 1. Make sure in the Variable Lists panel here in the upper left that the two radio buttons, Display Names, Alphabetical, are selected. That's the best way to view and handle variables in SPSS. Since those are already selected here, I'm going to click OK and get back to doing some analysis. Now, we're interested in this chapter in two aspects of variables: dispersion, how spread out is a variable, and central tendency. What's the typical value of a variable? This example is going to emphasize dispersion. Imagine a variable that can take on, let's say, 12 values. What would this variable look like if it had no dispersion? A variable has no dispersion if all the cases fall into one value of the variable. So you would see 12 values, but 100% of the cases would fall into just one of those 12 values. What would that variable look like if it had maximum dispersion or spread? Well, if it had maximum dispersion, equal numbers of respondents would fall into each value of the variable. So if there are 12 values, that would mean that about 8%, 8.3% to be more precise, of the cases would fall into each value of the variable. So it would be even spread. That's maximum dispersion. No dispersion is if all the cases fall into one value. Now, these are idealizations, but those two poles, those two ideals, help you evaluate a variable as having a little or low dispersion or a lot high dispersion. To illustrate, let's analyze zodiac, respondents' astrological signs, which, as it turns out, has 12 values. Click Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Frequencies. And here's the frequencies window. A shortcut, of course, is to, if you got a variable highlighted in the variable list, is just to hit the first letter of the name of the variable you're going to analyze. Zodiac, I'm going to hit Z. That takes us down to the Z's, and there's Zodiac. It went right to it. So I'm going to click Zodiac over into the variables window. Let's go to charts. Let's get a chart of this variable too, a bar chart. Bar chart. Select that, and we prefer percentages. Let's hit Continue. We're all set. Hit OK. And we go to the output. I'll highlight this. This is the frequency distribution for respondents' astrological signs. SPSS has told us how many respondents fall into each category: 146 in Aries, 172 in Taurus, so on and so forth, all the way down through Pisces. And it also gives us three columns of percentages: percent, valid percent, and cumulative percent. What's the difference, and what's the application and use of these different columns? Percent, this column can usually be ignored. Why? Because it includes missing cases. You may have noticed over here, though, that there are 1,906 valid cases of respondents for whom their astrological sign was known, and 69 respondents for whom the data are missing. So you don't want to do that, because sometimes there are a lot of missing cases for any given variable. So focus on valid percent. And you can see, for example, 146 respondents, or 7.6% of all valid respondents fall into Aries down through Taurus, and so on and so forth. Finally, a word before we move down and analyze this variable and talk about its dispersion. Here is cumulative percent. Now, for a nominal variable, that is a variable for which the values cannot be ranked, such as zodiac, the cumulative percent column can be ignored. It has no probative value. But again, for nominals, we can focus on, of course, the value labels, frequencies, and valid percent. Let's see what this looks like visually. These bar charts in SPSS are always quite useful for just getting a handle on what the character of your variable is. Now, as mentioned earlier, for a variable that has maximum dispersion, it has 12 categories, and we see here each of the categories of zodiac is along the horizontal. The percentage falling into each category is recorded on the vertical. What did we say? If this variable had maximum dispersion, about 8% of respondents would fall into each category of the variable. So about 8%, look how close these bars come to that maximum dispersion scenario. To be sure, there is one value, if you go back up here, you can see it, Leo, that contains the highest percentage of cases. So technically speaking, Leo is the mode of this variable, which is the only measure of central tendency you can use for nominals is the mode. But it really doesn't make much sense to say that's the typical astrological sign, because respondents are so spread out across the values of this variable. So the more interesting aspect, the more interesting characteristic of this particular variable is how spread out it is.